Phone Booth Fighting listeners. Welcome to an edition of Corona Quarantine Chronicles. Myself, Richard Hunter. I'm in my house over here in suburban Las Vegas. Frank Mir, two-time UFC heavyweight champion. He's over there in his house in suburban Las Vegas. And Frank, our guest of honor, right there in the center square, returning to Phone Booth Fighting. It's the drummer from Poison, Rikki Rockett, coming back. How you doing, man? It's good to catch up
man.
with you.
Third time, and last time we couldn't get Frank, like maybe for like 30 seconds. I think we got him, and then it was like went away. We were in Vegas, as a matter of fact. So
that's right. Poison was playing at the Hard Rock. Rikki was kind enough to set up a whole live broadcast in his dressing room. Frank, you were overseas calling a fight for ACB somewhere. And what I remember is the plan was we were going to have you on an iPad. We get you on an iPad for 30 seconds. And there had been some issue with the promoter. There was some issue with, I don't know if it was money related or what, but you were on your way to, you were going to have to go sort something out. Do you recall this?
No, the sad part is there's about 10 stories that probably would fit as far as some of the photos going out.
Yeah, you've been there before with bands, right, Rikki, where the road manager has to take his cricket bat and go have a word with the promoter. Frank probably would have come in handy back then.
Oh yeah, we've had many of nights like that. Not so much now. Things are Live Nation, and it's we have it all worked out way ahead of time. But yeah, there was some nights, man. We had one issue at a racetrack. It was crazy, and people started tearing stuff apart, and I mean, it was then the promoter started to try to run out of there, and we stopped them. We shut it down. He couldn't get anywhere because all the fans were, trying to pull out. So he was like stuck in a traffic jam. So it was the perfect storm for us. So our road crew got him. So
how long ago?
It's probably 8 years ago, I'm guessing.
Okay, wow. Not that long ago. Yeah.
No,
I mean,
because we do a lot of high-end gigs, and once in a while promoter will come up with a bunch of money and go, hey, let's try something, and it's tempting and you try it, and sometimes if it's too good to be true, it's because it is too good to be true.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very true. I mean, there's legendary stories like Peter Grant, the old road manager of Led Zeppelin. I mean, he was a guy that would go out in the park. It's funny because I tell my girlfriend sometimes we'll go to a show, Rikki, nowadays, and you'll see somebody selling bootleg T-shirts out by the street. And nowadays, they'll get a citation or whatever. But I always tell her, I was like, way before you're back in the 1970s, Peter Grant would have probably been out there with his baseball bat dispensing some vigilante justice.
You know what? In Mexico, it's legal. So that makes it really, really difficult.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like bootleg.
Wow. Bootleg, yeah. So there's nothing you can do about it. But Van Halen, what they did was they were selling their own merch, and they were doing their own bootleg security. So they were like shutting the bootleggers down, and then they turn around and sell the bootleg shirts too. Wow. It's like they had it really figured out, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not every state's the same. Some cities are a little bit different, and the laws are different everywhere. You have to know what the laws are. So
yeah.
But
go ahead,
sorry.
sir.
No,
you talk.
I don't even know what I was going to say now. So I'm a little crispy around the edges today.
So we got to talk to Rikki about his YouTube channel. That is pretty impressive. Frank and I have been looking at these those, and we're gonna talk some music and everything here in a second. Get the update on what all's going on. But start us there, Rikki, because I mean, like you, we're YouTubers. We got a YouTube channel, Blue Fighting, but you have your Legend YouTube channel. And you put out some pretty incredible, they're travel vlogs, but they also deal with paranormal, supernatural, and you're keeping them coming. You're cranking them out. Kind of what got you started and all that, and what's the state of the channel these days?
Well, actually, I'm working on a zombie one right now, so that's it's all about zombies. Because believe it or not, May is National Zombie Month. So, I bet you didn't know that, huh?
No,
Become pretty famous pretty soon.
Probably even zombie fans, but yeah, there's a National Zombie Society, and they put that together. But yeah, the way I started the channel, I mean, I just wanted to have a YouTube channel, and because I have so many interests, I love cameras and motorcycles and all kinds of stuff. And when Poison, I started to do some stuff, and it was like I was having a little trouble getting traction with it because YouTube's hard, man. And we were in Texarkana, Texas, and I found out that that was the home to where a particular urban legend had occurred. And I
That's
love
the Lover's Lane one, right?
Yes. And I love urban legends. And I love all those spooky stories. And I used to scare people and get scared. And I mean, you know, I just love that shit. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something about this. And so I did. I went to where it happened, and it got a lot of traction. And I was like, you know what? This is kind of a cool niche because nobody's really doing urban legends. They do sometimes they'll do an urban legend, but most of these paranormal channels are, you know, about hauntings, and they sit around with a meter all night, or, you know, infrared camera in a house or something. And I'm just not cut out to really do that. So I like just like finding out history and true crime and where all this stuff came from, and it's fun to uncover it. And so I've gotten quite a bit of traction. I've been talking with some TV people now, and we'll see if something happens. It would be really awesome to actually have a budget and like travel around and really dig into some of this stuff. Go globally, like all over the world. There's these urban legends everywhere.
Were you always interested in that stuff?
Always. I mean, if you look back here, I don't know if you can see it. That encyclopedia set right there is from when I was 12 years old, called Man, Myth, and Magic. And it's all about the occult and all that stuff. I mean, I've never been, you know, like into like conjuring the devil or anything like that, but I've always been interested in that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like Amityville, New York was not that far away. That was one of the first places I went and checked out. And then in Pennsylvania, where I'm from, there's this place called Ray Myers Hollow, which was kind of a spooky story, true story about a witch doctor, a Pennsylvania Dutch witch doctor that was jealous of another one and murdered him. And so that much was true. The witch doctor part, who knows? But so, I mean, there's, you know, I've been interested in that stuff for quite a long time.
Wow. And then, you know, how do you kind of, how do you, I'm assuming with the band tour, you know, it's a nice opportunity. You're going to be traveling anyway. I know you like to travel with your motorbike on the back of the bus and the trailer and all that. So you just kind of put out a map, see where the band's going, and see how you can pair some daytime vlogging with that. How does that go?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm going to do for sure. You know, sometimes we don't have time, quite frankly. You know, there's a lot of stuff that we have to do on the road, a lot of meet and greets and interviews and sound checks. And I mean, you know, you're trying to fit all this stuff in and actually eat somewhere in there and all that stuff. But on, you know, there's some days where you actually do get some time, and that's when I'll definitely go after it. And there isn't a place, I don't think, in the country that doesn't have urban legends. I mean, that's why my channel, I advertise, you know, every town has an urban legend. What's yours? You know, everybody's got one. Everybody, and sometimes they're the same. It's like, no, I know that story. That happened down here at, you know, Johnson Lake. And it's like, no, that happened in my state. You know, it's really funny when you start to dig into it a little bit.
Yeah. The now, you know, one of the things I think is interesting about these stories is they're kind of timeless because, you know, like you talk about Satanic Panic, for example, in your videos. That was a real thing in Salem at the witch trials, but it was also a real thing in the 1980s and even more recently. I always think it's kind of interesting that some of these things, the story, you know, if you don't give me the context, the telling me could be 100 years old or it could be 2 months old, you know?
Right. Well, you know what's funny? I mean, you remember the Saturday Night Live skit, Satan, perhaps, the church league.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was kind of a response to the Satanic Panic. It was like, everybody, there is real, I mean, it depends on what your belief system is. But if you believe in God, then you believe in the devil. But on the flip side, when the old saying, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So if you're just like this crazy Christian person, then everything looks like the devil, and you got to shut it all down. Everything is, UFC fighting is the devil. I mean, everything's the devil. And just like this, the COVID-19 preacher. I don't know if you've seen that meme where that guy was like, he's going to blow it away with the wind of God and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some real whack jobs out there. So, what happened is it just took off, in the 80s. It's like there was this idea that there was these satanic cults of kids and crazy teenagers sacrificing animals. And, if there was murders, they would blame it on that. And, it turns out there were a few murders that people did kill in the name of Satan, or at least that's what they said. I mean, it's really their fault. Ultimately, it's not Satan's fault. It's everybody's responsible for being responsible. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting phenomenon because rock bands got blamed for it. And I mean, when we did Something to Believe In, we had that reference to the church taking the money and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. People, I mean, we were getting protested, us, Poison. We're not Alice Cooper, we're not Marilyn Manson, but we were getting protested too. And I'd go out there and I'd talk to the people and I'd be like, what are you protesting? Like, we're not bad guys. Like, what do you, and they wouldn't even talk to me half the time. They'd just be like, get out of here.
Yeah. Frank?
No, I'm just listening.
Yeah. They, I'll tell you this, Frank, this is, we tell these stories on the show about me going to old concerts in the 80s. I mean, there was many a time where I'd walk out of Reunion Arena in Dallas, Texas in the 80s, and there'd be religious groups out there protest. Rikki said it wouldn't always be an Ozzy Osbourne concert. Sometimes it'd be Poison or Rat or, one of these kind of bands. And I always wonder what happened to those guys, because they were very dedicated. And then one day they just quit coming. I don't know if that was so much a regional thing, Rikki. I mean, did you see that more in certain parts of the country, or did every tend to have their own groups?
I don't even remember where some of it was, quite frankly. But there are Bible belts. I mean, and you get a little more of it there, I believe. But I don't remember. Honestly, I don't. But everywhere, sort of. I mean, I grew up with friends that were like, didn't want to hang out with me once I started a rock band because they thought I was playing the devil's music, that horrible triad, that you were not supposed to play, those chords. And look, it started with Elvis. He was, it was devil music. You know what I mean? Elvis was. So, I mean, we're in good company, I guess.
I wanted to ask, because, Frank, you and I have been talking a lot on the show about how to creatively train during a time like this. I mean, give Rikki an idea of what you've been having to with as far as staying in shape for your night when that comes around. I mean, it's not like it was a few months ago where we could go to the gym like normal, right?
No. Basically, just everything's in small groups now. I got the kids that like to train with me, so we still have access to a weight room. So we do that during the mornings and stuff, especially like Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And then the rest of the evenings at 6 o'clock, we try to go to an area where there's a mat. But we just keep it very limited as far as, Bella gets a workout partner. I call up somebody and I have a workout partner, and we kind of work out from there. And just the days of, being on a mat with 20 other people are kind of, at the moment gone.
Yeah, I'm going to start back with my coach on Tuesday. We're going to go Tuesdays and Thursdays privately. And I've been going just 3 days a week with a strength conditioning coach who has a place at his house. So he's like a clean freak. Everything's nice and clean and sanitized. So I'm not worried about it. So we've been just training in his garage, man. He's got, I mean, it's a garage, but man, we get a lot of work done in there. And I feel a lot stronger. I can't wait to go back to jiu-jitsu and see how I feel. I'm going to be slower. I know my timing's going to be off and all that stuff, but at least I'll have some strength to back it up for a change.
Yeah. And actually, sometimes I noticed it was a couple of weeks before we actually got that settled in. I actually felt better. I think sometimes you don't realize that some time off and rest actually improves your performance. I think we all have it hammered into our heads that if you're not training all the time, that you're not improving and you'll start losing steps. But, you know, sometimes the nervous system feeling good is better than your lungs feeling good, you know, as far as your overall performance.
Man, I'll tell you, as I'm getting older, Frank, it's like, I mean, it takes me time to recover, man. It's like, I'll wake up and my body, I'll be going like, what the hell is going on? You know, I mean, it just, and I've been eating really clean lately, really working hard at it.
Do you guys, what'd you say, Frank?
We've been hit and miss here with that.
Oh, with the eating?
But, yeah, especially because Jennifer bought all these baking books now and she's experimenting with different things and baking and
you know, when the kids are here, it's hard. You know, they want pancakes and I'll try to put protein powder in it. I'll try to make it good, but it's like a lot of calories. You know, I got a question for you though, Frank. What do you think about Gordon Ryan going into MMA? Do you think he's going to transition and be a force to be reckoned with, or do you think he's going to get crushed like Ortega?
I think it depends on how they match him up at the beginning. I think as long as they don't match him up with somebody who has too sound of a wrestling base, he'll be fine. But just like you saw, like when he went against somebody who has a wrestling base, I know he says he didn't want to submit the guy really fast. But, you know, a lot of his footwork and stuff, or footlock attacks and whatnot, work a lot better if he can get in good position or pull underneath you, you know. So I think that he's just going to have to adapt, and just really it's going to just depend on his ability to adapt. Some guys, you know, really have a system down, and that's what they feel comfortable with. I'm thinking Gordon will be able to adapt well, and as long as they take him slowly, I think he'll be all right. I think if he jumps in water too deep too soon, I mean, you know, if you look at the top level guys in MMA, most of them probably wouldn't place in a grappling competition. You know, I mean, you look at John Jones, for example. John, I don't know how well he would do in a submission-only tournament. You know, compared to how well Gordon Ryan does. But I know what would happen if they fought each other. Like, you know, I wouldn't even, you know, if someone told me to put money on Gordon Ryan against John, I would laugh. I'd be like, there's not a chance in hell, even if you took away one of John's arms. Because of John's wrestling-based foundation. The thing about MMA is it's much more about the basics than it is about more the higher level. And you see that in all aspects of it, you know, from everybody from, you know, Adesanya, who's a great kickboxer, but he uses the basics of his art, to, you know, Yoel Romero, you know, Daniel Cormier's wrestling. They're using the basics of their art. If you watch them in a wrestling match, there's a lot more techniques that they have for their art that don't translate over to MMA. And the same goes for jiu-jitsu. I mean, arguably the greatest jiu-jitsu guy ever is Roger Gracie, right? He didn't do that great in MMA. I mean, he did good at the beginning, but once he started getting up to the higher level guys, you know, they were able to even fight with him on the ground. It wasn't like everybody just avoided him. I remember who's our military guy, the fighter. He fought Yoel Romero too. A really bad decision. Who's the name I'm thinking of?
Oh, Tim Kennedy.
Tim Kennedy took his back. He had him on the ground. Had that been a jiu-jitsu gi or no gi match, that wouldn't have happened. MMA fight is different, you know. And so when people ask about how he's going to do when he transfers over, I'm like, it just depends on who he fights and how fast he can adapt. You know, if he jumps up too soon, too fast, I think it'll have disastrous, results. I think that if he's going to have to change his game, because he does have aspects of his game that do work in MMA. I mean, obviously he has a great triangle armbar. But the foot attacks and stuff, they just don't work as well in MMA because while you're going for someone's foot, they're driving elbows down on your head. And this is coming from somebody as myself. I've won fights with footlocks. They're not easy to pull off in a fight compared to they are in a jiu-jitsu match.
Well, he's saying that he works on the inside. Everything in the inside, no one's going to be able, people aren't going to be able to hit him effectively. That's what he's kind of saying. So, but I mean,
but there's elbows. Elbows are easy to hit anybody on the inside.
Yeah, that's true. Demian Maia is one of the few people that have just been pure jiu-jitsu guy with very basic stuff and just gone in and done really well. I mean, he loses sometimes too, but at least he's, you know, I mean, he's about the best in that. But like you said, if he went up against Roger Gracie, he'd probably lose in a jiu-jitsu match. You know what I mean?
Or yeah, it would be close. I don't know. Yeah, Rogers is great in jiu-jitsu, and even Demian. If you look at it, his jiu-jitsu still never gets in bad position. If you think about it, even when he's in guard or half guard, he's working to work himself into a sweep, to a takedown, to a top position. He loves to pass the guard. He wants to take your back. So again, Demian's jiu-jitsu transitions well into MMA because it's a positional game. So even if you're a good wrestler, if he's on your back, he's still on your back. Whereas getting to people's feet, again, that's why, like, you know, I hear this thing all the time. People talk about the footlock game not picking up in the in MMA world, and I'm like, well, just the very nature of it. The only reason why you see it in gi and no gi so prevalently is because the rules are biased towards it. If you were to, you know, we're MMA, the rules, it's much more difficult to get into that position and secure it without receiving a lot of damage. And
yeah, so, Gordon's saying it's because people don't know what they're doing with leg locks in MMA.
He also, though, Frank, you know, going on from what I recall, our excursions to EBI, of all the Danaher guys, to me, Gordon Ryan relies less on leg locks than the other guys. I mean, Gary Tone and Eddie Cummings, they were all like immediately sit, guard, and that sort of thing. And it seemed like Gordon may have a better, well-rounded perspective to bring.
Yeah, true. And then also, too, just so we have to break down how good his wrestling is going to be to get into that type of position, his striking, you know, and then there's always the, you know, the one factor that no one really knows till they fight. How are you going to react when you really get hit by another professional fighter with his hands are wrapped, you know? You know, and a lot of guys, and I look them in the eyes, and they 100% believe that they can do it because they've been in the gym and they've sparred with guys. And I just kind of smirk. I'm like, look, guys, I was there too. I sparred with people, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing, to be able to make that transition any easier for when you're in front of a crowd and thousands of people are screaming, and you finally feel another person whose adrenaline dumps, who's wearing a 4-ounce glove, and their hands have been taped by a professional hand wrapper, driving their fist through your skull. It's a different sensation, and it's shocking.
Yeah,
you know
dude.
What, Frank, no, I was just going to say, Frank, your dad, I thought, had a great perspective on this very thing you just said. Of course, your dad's been in your corner before. So Rikki, just for the context, I've just gotten my nose busted in my second fight, and the doctor's looking at me, and Frank's dad comes up. And I don't know if he was just trying to be nice or not, but this made me feel much better. He asked me, he was like, he made that exact point about not being used to striking. And he said, okay, what, you know, how many times have you been hit like that? And I said, well, twice, if you count 2 fights, you know. And he goes, okay, what did your second armbar look like? He goes, the second one you ever did, what did it look like? And I'm like, I don't know, it probably wasn't very good. And he was like, yeah, exactly. He's like, you know, there's no way to prepare for that. That's something you drill hundreds and thousands of times, and getting hammered like that is exactly the same thing. I'm sorry I cut you off, Rikki.
No, it's okay. I've had my nose broke 6 times. I don't like getting hit. When somebody's bent on your destruction, it's a different deal, man. when you shake hands and you go out and you roll, it's a different headspace than when somebody's like, fuck you, I want to take your ass out. It's another headspace. I get it. Now, I haven't been in the octagon, but I've been in the street a lot of times. With the way I looked in the 80s, you think I didn't? But you know, and I don't like it. I don't like getting hit too much. You know, my martial arts background was I wrestled in high school and junior high, and then I took karate. And then when I got out here, I actually took Bruce Lee's stuff, which I remember my coach always told me, he said, it takes you about 6 weeks to learn Bruce Lee's stuff, and it's going to take you years to make it right. Because it's basic. It's a Bruce Lee shit. It's pretty basic stuff. It's Western boxing. It's a little bit of kung fu involved. But I mean, moreover, at the end, he was obsessed with Western boxing, you know. But my stand-up blows right now. I mean, if somebody put me in the octagon right now with, I mean, not that I could ever compete against a real UFC fighter anyway, but somebody that's, you know, all things being equal, I wouldn't do well right now. I do okay in a street fight, but I don't think in the octagon. I think it's a different headspace.
And I hope people, it's funny because some people at home will want to have this conversation and be like, see, if I fight a guy who's really great at jiu-jitsu, I just have to punch him. I'm like, no, you are completely missing the point. Just how I'm saying that he's not used to getting punched professional fighter, you at home right now who's listening to this are a far cry from a professional fighter. You don't know how to throw a punch either. That'd be like me handing you a baseball and go, okay, I want to see a 90-mile-an-hour baseball over the plate. Most people can't get off the couch and throw a 90-mile-an-hour ball over the plate. Now, if you're going to go play in the pros and you're going to bat, you better be prepared to be able to hit a ball that's going over 90 miles an hour. So I guess that's the analogy I'm just trying to make with everybody, that you know, for Gordon to go up to that level, just as long as he takes it slow, can he adapt over? I think so. I think he could do really well, barring, you know, just that he doesn't take on too much too soon. You know, and that's the only problem sometimes that you'll see with guys that have a phenomenal background in some area like Gordon does, who's, you know, one of the best grapplers in the world, all of a sudden being pushed too far up the ranks too quickly into shows, fighting for championships against guys that have 20, 30 fights already, and then not doing well. I mean, hell, the greatest boxer I've ever seen in my life, Lomachenko, right? The guy was like 396-1 as an amateur. And the only guy that ever beat him, he went back and revenged that loss twice. He was so good that his very first fight, he thought he could fight for a title. Well, now Lomachenko is the champion, but he has a loss on his record because he started out his career 0-1. You know, there's a lesson to be learned from, hey, even Lomachenko, who's the greatest boxer who ever lived, take it slowly. You know what I mean? Like, let's ease into the waters a little bit. There's still a difference between amateur boxing and professional boxing, and he learned that night in Texas.
How good is Khabib?
I mean, Khabib is one of the best in the world, really, honestly. His tenacity, his ability to take down. I think that really, honestly, it's his ground and pound. His ability to pin you on the mat is just really second to none, you know. So, you know, I think he has extremely high-level takedown abilities, and then he's extremely hard to sweep and submit. So, and then once he's on top of you, you know, a lot of guys, when they're using ground and pound, they're just scoring points. You know, you'll see them. They're hitting you, and they're like, okay, judges, look that I'm controlling the fight. You know what I mean? You know, like when Henry Cejudo fought Demetrius Johnson, none of the ground and pound in that fight had any significant damage whatsoever because Cejudo was concerned with holding him down. That's not how Khabib fights. Khabib, once he gets you down, I mean, there's times where I'm watching his fights and I'm turning my face like going, oh my God, because he is just able to generate. He knows how to lock you up, keep a great base, and free his upper body. So he's not using his hands to hold you down, and he just comes down with a ton of pressure. So he really, when he's grounding and pounding people, he beats them up, and then, you know, that's what causes a lot of the mistakes the guys make for him to get submissions. Like in the Conor fight, Conor, you know, rolled to his hands and knees because he just wanted to get out of there. It was so bad where he was at that he wanted to get to a different position just to alleviate some of the strikes he was receiving, and then that's when he got, the palm-to-palm choke,
Well, I think, I don't know if this Ferguson thing's ever going to happen or what, but I mean, Khabib and Ferguson, I think that Ferguson, maybe Khabib hasn't seen a fighter like Ferguson, but Ferguson hasn't seen a fighter like Khabib.
No, I agree with you. That's a sound statement on both ends. And in all reality, I don't know who to bet on because there was things I seen in the Conor fight that stalled out Khabib's guard, that stalled out his top game. You see in that fight Conor controlling wrists and kind of stalling him out, and especially in that first round, really didn't take a lot of damage compared to some of the other fighters that I've seen Khabib on top of, like Michael Johnson, who took an enormous amount of damage and just showed a lot of heart, but was really getting beat up badly, from the bottom. Ferguson is just as tall and long as Conor, and likes to do wrist control. But on top of that, he actually has techniques from the bottom where, Conor doesn't know how to, not that he doesn't know how to, but he's never showcased the ability to throw a triangle up or an arm bar or to sweep from the bottom. He stalls from the bottom and hopes that he can get back up to his feet, or the referee comes in and gets involved. Ferguson's active from the bottom. He's trying to go underneath you for knee bars, and if he doesn't hit the knee bar, he sweeps you off your base so that you're not beating him up. He'll throw up triangles. So he can also be a threat, which will slow down Khabib's onslaught from his top game. And then when they get on their feet, Ferguson has the advantage. Ferguson's the better striker. He's longer, and and I think that they're both really resilient. So I don't know if either one of them, but I never, as far as I can think of, ever seen Ferguson get rocked. I just don't remember watching him ever get stunned.
Yeah. I mean, he's taken a lot of damage. Yeah, but we were just talking. We were just talking about this.
Put on ice.
Yeah.
When Khabib fought Michael Johnson, who doesn't hit nowhere, I don't think hits as hard as Ferguson. He hit him with that straight left. That's probably the most damage. No, that is the most damage I've ever seen Khabib ever taken a fight where he was hurt. So it just shows you that with his reach and ability, Tony could hurt him. So I mean, this is one fight where, normally when Khabib is fought, I never bet against him. This is a fight that I'll gladly not bet on either fighter because I really don't know. Both guys really do have elements of their game that they could beat the other guy, and it looks interesting.
I mean, I think Iaquinta did a good job striking in that fight. For somebody that just rolled in at the last minute and took that fight. There was a couple times where I was like, man, you know what? If he would have just sharpened everything up a little bit, he could have been a real threat to Khabib.
Yeah, Al was hard to take down, and he changed his stance for that fight, he said. So, and he kept the fight on its feet. So, yeah, I think Al is actually still probably has better hands than Ferguson. Iaquinta was a really good boxer, really good boxing hands, which, where the gym they come from, they all did. But Ferguson has reach, and for the different reasons. Not that he'll be sprawling on, not that he couldn't. Ferguson was a high-level college wrestler. He could try to sprawl and avoid and take his time, making it difficult for him to shoot on him. But once he gets him there, he's very dangerous off his back. So they might call into question how in the past, Khabib can relentlessly come in and just dive at your legs because he knows once he gets there, it's it's all sunlight for him. It's all daylight. It's glory. Whereas if he just dives in on Ferguson, Ferguson grabs him in a guillotine like Poirier did. I think Ferguson finishes it. His arms, he's better at jiu-jitsu than Poirier is. I think he's much better submission artist. So I think that that's going to cause Khabib, rightfully so, to hesitate a minute.
Yeah, yeah. Who do you think, who's to look out for right now, do you think? Like, who's besides yourself? Who's to look out for, man? Who do you think is like the guy coming up? That's just, unstoppable.
I don't know if I have one off the bat. That's probably a better question for Richie. You
Wow. I mean, you've got some middle of the pack leads that are, and I say middle of the pack, I mean that's the deepest division in the UFC probably. But you've got those guys who hit. There's a few of them where they hit that point where it's like their name isn't big enough to draw big money, but their record is scary enough that there's not a lot of upside to fighting them. If you find you're more of an A-side name, a bigger name, a lot of people are going to expect that you were supposed to win because you had a bigger name. But if you lose to them, there's a whole downside. I think we're going to see some of those guys showcase the next few weeks here with the UFC.
Who's the dude? I cannot think of his name. I always forget his name. The guy that
came over.
Yeah, Jan's one.
Yeah.
Who, Ricky?
The guy that like he had a mullet for a while, kind of long hair. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. He just won in the last fight.
You talk about Michael Chiesa?
Michael Chiesa. That guy's amazing.
Yeah, very good.
Chiesa is really good. He's figured out a way to make his grappling really count, man. I mean, he's like, Gordon Ryan should train with him.
Yeah,
because he's a really good grappler. I mean, he's really good.
Very creative fighter.
Very creative. He can hit. He can avoid. He's slinky. I mean, he impressed the hell out of me. Every fight he's done so far.
What's your thought, Ricky? We got some great MMA talk going. Of course, the UFC is going back to business this weekend in Jacksonville, and whether it's UFC fighting in an empty arena, whether it's being able to train in a jiu-jitsu gym like we were talking about earlier, or getting back to your day job, which is rock and roll in front of thousands of people. What's your overall outlook on where we sit right now as far as reopening? I mean, do you think things will be reopened, or if not, when they are, what are the safety measures you kind of personally look at?
You know what? This is all big questions. For one thing, as far as, the stadium tour, we're not going to know until June 1st. They moved the goalpost back. So that's a little unfortunate because I was hoping for the 1st of this month to know. But it's kind of out of their hands. It's out of everybody's hands, really. I know Missouri just opened up for concerts. I heard about that, like as of today, I believe it is. We'll see how that goes. I don't know what their numbers are as far as COVID-19 cases and stuff like that, but it's going to be harder to do meet and greets. I mean, like Brett's, lifetime diabetic, right?
Yeah.
I went through what I went through, but I tell you, I'm getting on the 1st, I'm getting a test to find out if I have the antibodies. And if I already had it, I'm happy about that. I mean, then it's like, come on, bring it on. You know what I mean? Because I'll tell you, January, February, I was sick, dude.
Yeah. I have a thought about this, Ricky. All right, here's a free business idea. I have the thought that with these meet and greets, Frank, sometimes the bands break, like sometimes you just get the whole band, but sometimes it's like Joe Perry and Steven Tyler, or you get the whole band, or it's these two guys, but not those. Here's my idea, Ricky. If you test for the antibodies, to me, that member of the band should be more expensive on the meet and greet because it's safer, And if you got some guy that's a wild card, I'm like, well, we can save a few bucks, but don't get too close.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it could work that way, but who knows? Maybe the people have to stand, a couple feet in front of us. And I don't know. Maybe they'll be done virtually. Maybe it'll be fine by then. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I hope so. I'm a huggy kissy person. My family was like that. I like to shake hands. I like to hug people. I'm like full, I don't like this, hey bro thing. I mean, I mean, we got to do what we got to do, but I hope we can get through this soon.
What do you think, Frank? We've talked about that. Do you think it's going to change things for the way fighters deal with meet and greets and things like that?
I think for the time being, it's going to. I think that
Mhm.
you know. Well, I mean, I say that, but then you know, you see people, you know, still gathering up and going to the beaches. I just watched that right now on the, you know, Jen's family's all from California, and they're showing me all videos of everybody and down there on the beach. So, I think that you still have a large portion of the population that feels that, you know, this is like the flu. You know, as far as, even though it's a different virus, but meaning that it's something that's contagious, that's going to cost people lives if you have, but it's there and it's going to be unavoidable, and just to live life, you know, to live life anyways, and so I think that's how people are always going to approach this. So I think if they opened up a meet and greet right now, I guarantee there'd still be a line of people willing to go.
Yeah, I think there'll always be people who are willing to do it. But, you know, as somebody who came of age during came of sexual age right about the time AIDS was coming along and all that, I also remember all the misinformation around that. You know, at first it was, oh, it's just the gay disease, or you're just going to get it if you do this certain thing, but not that. The reality is nobody knew. And it took quite a bit of time to find out. I was thinking, it's funny you mentioned the meet and greet. Like, I was thinking how history would have been rewritten if Corona had come along in the 80s. We'd be hearing these legendary tales about rock stars, the numbers of women that they waved at from a safe foot distance. You know, that's about as salacious as it would get.
Yeah.
Well, hey, why don't go ahead, Frank?
Oh, no, say something?
Oh,
I saw that the other day, and it was funny because Jen was telling me, we're in the car, so she was like, "Oh, they said that on the first day that they opened up Georgia, they had 1,000 new cases of Corona." Do you remember hearing an article, anything close to that, or like?
Yeah, I mean, there's been several states that once reopened, they've spiked. I don't think there's been such a drastic spike that anybody's been like, holy cow, we got to shut this right down again. But that's 100% what everybody's. And one number I've seen is give it weeks. See what happens for the next 3 weeks with some of these states that have reopened.
I'm suspicious about information that I'm receiving, because when she told me that, I told her, like, well, that can't be right. She goes, "What do you mean?" I'm all, I thought the incubation period's 4 or 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one just, that's the reason why it's so dangerous, right? If tomorrow or today I go over to your house and I get contaminated with COVID-19, I'm not going to show signs for 4 or 5 days. So that's 4 or 5 days that I could be walking around exposing people. So if all of a sudden an article comes out going, hey, they opened the doors on Thursday and Friday, 1,000 new cases were out. That
doesn't make sense.
Wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. How can we have 1,000 new cases within days of it opening up? Wouldn't it take 4 or 5 days for people to even get the symptoms to even want to go get tested?
Yeah, no,
right.
There's, you know what, I'm totally with you. And there's so much misinformation, and there's all these people with these freaking conspiracy theories.
Yes.
It's like, oh my God, no matter what you think of politically, neither party has started a global pandemic just so that they can get Trump impeached. I mean, how could you even, man, these people can't even, I mean, these conspiracy theories are so out to lunch sometimes that I just sit there and I go, come on, guys. I mean, I honestly believe that a lot of people just I don't think any of us knew what this was going to do. I think that's really it in a nutshell. I think it took everybody off guard. Really, I do. But, and then there's a whole thing.
I don't think it's that far-fetched to sit there and go that, well, if you are a Democrat, this is a great opportunity to take advantage of, as far as it did plummet the economy, which would have been extremely, that if you look at different things that have ousted presidents in the past, it's usually an unfavorable war we're not in, or a shitty economy. Those seem to be the two things that really turn the tide the hardest on any president going for re-election.
But how are the Democrats going to like make a pandemic in Denmark happen?
No, not
and
make
what
a
goodness,
pandemic,
right?
But take advantage of it, as far as sitting there going, if you look at most of the states that are much more Democratic saying, hey, we're not going to open up. We're going to stay closed. We're going to continue.
Oh, I got what you're saying.
Social distancing.
Yeah.
If you look at it, it's almost split across party lines.
Right,
the Republican
right.
Party is saying, hey, let's open up. The Democratic states are saying, no, let's keep it shut down. And no matter what you want to say, keeping a state shut does hurt on the economic side.
But the thing is, a bad economy doesn't help anybody.
Well, no. Taking advantage of it is one thing, but to your point, Rikki, and this is to me it's the best and the worst thing about the internet. The best thing is anybody can get on it, anybody can get information, anybody can have a YouTube channel. The worst thing about it is that anybody can have a YouTube channel, anybody can get any kind of information. I mean, nothing is, and it is scary the number of people that instantly gravitate toward that as a ready-made explanation. That, oh, well, I found this obscure website that lays out this bizarre conspiracy without just some simple common sense of, you know the old secret, 3 people can, or the old saying, 3 people can keep a secret if 2 are dead, I mean, and yet you're telling me that this massive body of people with the same special interest all manage to keep a secret. It's no different than saying that, gay people choose to be that way, but somehow they've all secretly got together when none of us straight folks were around and agreed that they would all keep that secret, Well,
I think what Frank's saying is I think people can jump on a bandwagon once they have the ideology in place. That I think
the
that's
U.S.
what you're
has done
saying.
it before. If you think about it, I mean, think about back in, 41 when Pearl Harbor was bombed. I mean, it didn't come out
Gulf of Tonkin
knowledge till decades later. Like, oh, by the way, we actually knew, we intercepted some communication that was coming, but
Pearl Harbor. Well, it's Vietnam War, but there's another one.
Into the war.
Yeah.
So I mean, they didn't cause the problem, but I definitely think it's not far-fetched to sit there and say that people take advantage of issues politically.
Sure. Well, people always do that.
Well, I'll tell you this.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, no, I just, God, I keep losing my train of thought. Man, I didn't get enough sleep. My fiance burned her hand really bad, and so I've been dressing it and trying to, I used to be an EMT, believe it or not. But so it's been up to me to do that. And she's been sleeping bad, which means I've been sleeping bad. So it's like, oh man, I'm just crispy right now. There's my victim story. So sorry.
Well, let me ask about this before we wrap up though. Because we should definitely end on this positive. Rikki mentioned the stadium tour in June 1st. You're hopefully going to get an update on where everything sits. I mean, obviously, it has to be postponed. This thing has been so successful. It's going to get postponed.
Know.
I mean, I bet the dates, but
the tour doesn't start. The tour doesn't start till June 18th. So they're still selling tickets for all the shows. So I don't know. I mean, really. If I knew, I would absolutely tell you.
No. What I say is, if it does get, saying is, it was so successful that these dates are happening at some point, sometime. I mean, whether they get to stay as scheduled or whatever. But that's what I wanted to ask you about, because this thing was such a success at the box office. I mean, everybody knows that Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison, all very successful bands in their own right. And this thing, it's called the Stadium Tour for a reason. I mean, this thing was hard selling out places. I just want to ask you about this. I mean, I know you had to know it was going to be successful, but man, that's a real statement about this music in 2020 as far as solid it is. Like, I don't want that part of the storyline to get lost here,
Well, you know what? It's, I think I didn't know it would do as well as it did. I mean, it's been over 1 million tickets sold or something like that. It's crazy. And they're still selling tickets in the midst of all this.
Yeah.
I think people love good time rock and roll. They just do. There's a lot of different kinds of music for a lot of different kinds of moods. But in terms of concerts, people want to have a good time. Nobody wants to get together in a huge group and feel like shit. People want to get together and have a great time. And that's what all these bands do. We are ringleaders for the party. That's what we're good at doing. So I think people look forward to that, and it's like a celebration, you know what I mean? And People always know that you're going to get that with us. You're going to get a bunch of hits with Poison, Def Leppard, and Motley Crue, all at Joan Jett. I mean, all great bands, great artists that have a lot of history. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, you put that all together, and you're hearing an entire night of hit songs that are meant to make you have a good time. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and how about the fact that you're talking about Poison, all original members, Motley Crue, all original members, Def Leppard, basically all original members. I mean, the classic lineup, one member is deceased, but it's close to that classic lineup as you can get. I mean, that's an incredible rarity these days.
Yeah, it is. We're kind of like one of the last bands standing, you know?
Yeah. Well, I do know, regardless of whatever is scheduling on the stadium tour, Poison has a solo. You guys have your own headlining show booked for Vegas, I think in October, Frank. So fortunately, we don't have to worry about that one getting in jeopardy yet. So nothing else. Maybe we'll see in here in Vegas in October.
Yeah, no, we definitely have some things on our own. And a lot of people, you know, I just want to say this too. A lot of people ask me, you know, how do you keep a band together this long, or what's the secret to, you know, there is no actual bottled secret. Okay. But I will say this, if you're not a team player, this sounds so cliche. If you're not a team player, a band is a team, and you got to figure out how to work as a team. And that's why we've been around for a long time. If you see the Def Leppard guys, if you see the Motley Crue guys, they might seem like a complete mess. I tell you right now, it's not a mess. It's everybody knows where their place is. And sometimes you step out of line a little bit and you go, that's not really my territory. I think I'll back it up a little bit here and sit in. That's what it's about. It's about finding what and supporting the other guys. It's like it's a team, man. And so all the musicians that are trying to figure out, how do I make this happen? You can't make it all about you. You got to make it all about us. And if you do that, you'll have a way better chance of having a successful band. I just want to throw that little piece of advice out there for whatever it's worth.
You hear that, Frank? You can't make it all about you when you're in a band. That's why you never put a band together. That's why you went to a solo sport.
Much more.
Well, that's why I fight jiu-jitsu, because that way I don't have to answer to anybody except my coach.
That's right. That's right. Well, man, Rikki, it's always great talking with you. And this was cool, Frank, because we got into some pretty hardcore MMA talk. Rikki can hang there. So I think we know what to do next time we get him on, too.
I love MMA. I love the fight game. It's, you know, I'm a huge fan of it. I'm a fan of yours, Frank. You know that. And, you know, in fact, I just watched one of your fights recently, too. A rewind. And so, yeah, I'll always come on and talk about MMA and stuff. I'm so fortunate living in Southern California and having a coach like Hanato Magno at Street Sports, because we get, you know, guys like Boom Boom Mancini coming in and teaching boxing classes, Rico Chiapparelli teaching wrestling classes. I mean, we're very, very fortunate, you know, to have all that exposure to stuff. And my coach is so open-minded that you never know what you're going to get when you walk in the door. It's like, oh, hey, guess who's teaching today?
Nice.
You know?
Well, we'll get this corona out of the way, and maybe one of these days we can all train together one day. That'd be nice, right?
And it'd be an honor.
Right on. All right, Rikki, listen, thanks for coming, man. Once again, everybody check out Rikki's YouTube channel. It's called Legend Tripping, youtube.com/Rikki Rockett. You'll find it right there. And, of course, follow Frank and I on our social media, our Phone Booth Fighting YouTube channel, all the rest of that. Rikki, as always, it's been awesome. Appreciate you being with us. And we'll see everybody next here on Phone Booth Fighting.
Thank you.
Stand by.